Hello, welcome to Figure Drawing. This is the Art Lounge Alley, and I'm going to be streaming Basics Part 47. Before I do that, I'd like to quickly jump into the Patreon page. Don't worry, y'all. For those of you who are returning, this is going to be a quick review. This is really meant for people who are just tuning in for the very first time to the Art Lounge Alley, and I'm going to keep it brief. There you go. This is the Art Lounge Alley Patreon page. There's some interesting tiers on here. I want to bring it to your attention so you could take your time and read through it on your own, at your own pace. You guys can access this Patreon page in the About section on the Twitch channel, along with other social media platforms there as well. But to get into it, you got Tier 1 official patrons, $2 per month, pretty affordable. You get access to the Discord server, patron name listed in the credits that I'm going to start doing once you guys start pledging to these tiers. And you'll be part of the patron-only community. Next, we got Tier 2 All Access patron. For $5 per month, you get all the previous tier benefits, plus you get early access to finished pages and exclusive content. So stuff that I'm not going to be posting to any other social media platform, just Patreon. All other content I'm going to be posting to other social media platforms, but you guys are going to get to see it first before anybody else. Next, we got Tier 3, Critique Submission tier. This is where it gets interesting and gets you guys involved with the Art Lounge Alley. Just like the title says, you guys can submit your work to have it critiqued live on stream, and also get your social media platform promoted to get more people excited about your work, to funnel in more people to visit your profile, and also just to get some tips and tricks on how you could improve whatever it is that you're working on. And of course, all the previous tier benefits. There's some things to read on there, so take your time, read through it at your own pace. Next, we got Kickstarter Patron, $25 per month. You could submit it once, you could cancel it the next month, but you will get, for $25 per month, you will get a high resolution digital painting of you. And there are some things that I'd like to highlight here, but they're not required, and you could just simply send me a photo of you from your head down to your chest, and I will do a digital painting of you live on stream. That's going to be on Thursdays from 8 until 10. So whatever it is that I'm going to be streaming today is going to be substituted by the Kickstarter patron stream. And the critique submission tier 3 is going to be held on Fridays from 8 until 10. Next, we got Tier 4 artist promotion. So this is really meant for intermediate or advanced artists. And it's an opportunity for you guys to be on stream promoting your work. There's a requirement for you to submit a 5-minute video. That way you guys can pace it out the way you'd like it, the way you want to present and talk about your work. I'm going to be presenting you guys before the stream starts on the social media platforms and at the beginning of the stream, as well as playing the video to show everybody what you're sharing, what ideas you got cooking. And of course, you get all the previous tier benefits. And finally, we got Tier 5 private tutoring, limited to 15 people. You get 4 personal videos per month, plus a PSD file showing you what you could do to improve, and for you to explore at your own time and pace. You will also have an exclusive Discord channel dedicated to you, just to you, so that way me and you can have a private session. You could leave me comments, questions, you could leave me progress of your work, and I will talk about it in the next video. All right, y'all. So as I mentioned, there's other things you can read through, and if you have any questions, you could always ask me on stream or off stream, and I'll be happy to answer them. So without further ado, let's jump into today. I'm going to continue filling up these pages. I'm getting very close to finishing up this the sketchbook. I believe this could be the very last page actually before I embrace the new sketchbook. So what you're seeing here is just demonstration on ways you can look out for detail when it comes to drawing the hands. Now this is very brief. This was something done in chapter 2, just to give you guys an overview, really. But once I'm done with this sketchbook, once I'm done with these past few pages, I'm gonna leave these untouched. I'm not gonna try to fill them in because I will be uploading it for you guys to download, for you to be able to just draw these things out and practice. Now, some of you might ask, what's the point of drawing all these technical, medical almost drawings? And to that, I will say it's important because, one, you get to draw more. That's always a plus. You're always going to improve as long as you keep drawing. So the more material you have to draw, the better. You know, this stuff is available, and it kind of takes away the burden for you guys to think about what you want to draw. And I remember while I was learning and getting better, which is a continuous process, I'm still doing that. But when I was younger, let's just say, and I was learning and I was trying to draw my sketchbook, the first challenge always came up is, what do I draw? But while you're learning, really, this becomes an incredibly useful tool because it substitutes that need. You don't have to think about that. You have stuff to draw. And as long as you keep drawing, the better you get at controlling or wielding the pencil, controlling, creating lines that you want, syncing your hand-eye coordination, practicing techniques like drawing lightly, not pressing too hard on the pencil or the paper for that matter, keeping a distance from the tip of the pencil, you know, not doing this. 2 reasons why: because it obstructs your vision. You're only limited to what you're seeing in front of that the tip, and everything else is blocked. Whereas with this, you get to see the entire drawing. That's 1. And 2, the most important one is you get, well, I wouldn't say the most important, but second to most important one is the range of motion. So notice with this, it's kind of a stiff experience, which brings up the next point. Whereas with this, it is pretty free-flowing, and you're able to get a lot more done without having to move your entire arm, or rather wrist, to do it. So the first benefit is vision, second benefit is range of motion, and third is, and I think it's the most important one, is it's more of a free-flowing sort of experience. This creates a rigid experience, and when you're really sitting there drawing every tiny, minute little detail, trying to control every single line, it becomes a very stiff sort of focused and rough sort of experience drawing. Whereas keeping it at a distance, keeping it nice and loose, it allows you to really experience the process in a very free-flowing, relaxed sort of method. And with that, you will get control over the pencil, you will get control over your lines, but working in a good habit direction. This is, I would say it's a bad habit, something I had to fight off because I didn't pay attention to it. While I was practicing, while I was drawing, I would constantly focus on getting down the lines. But how I did it wasn't something that I thought about much, and I ended up having to work it out of my system more. So rather than having to do the same thing, you could just keep an eye out for it as you're learning all these other things. Which also brings up the point of why these pages are good, because you don't have to keep that in mind as well. You're just practicing techniques, as I mentioned, all these different techniques to keep in mind, while not having to worry about like what subject is it. And you're also gaining a better understanding of anatomy, because just like I would say building Legos, right? Like if you understand the underlying structure of what you're building on top of, it's easier to replicate it, or to draw it again, or to make it again. Once you understand how all the pieces underneath everything work, you'll know how to build on top of it. So the same idea is here. Once you understand how things are underneath, the body, or underneath the skin rather, you understand why certain curves, why certain lines are present. You know, for instance, for the hips, and you could even feel it yourself, you know, touch your hip area, you could feel that the bone is there. So it's necessary to have that curve present. If you miss it out, then it's going to look wrong. Your drawing is going to look bad. And it's going to be noticeable. And as I mentioned, even if a person isn't an artist, even a viewer, we have this ability to recognize when something is off anatomically. You know, when you look at a person and there's a little bit of an anatomical issue going on, or something is wrong, we immediately catch that. You know, it's just in our nature to kind of recognize that. You don't necessarily have to be an artist, is what I'm getting at, to really see that something is a little bit off. So when you are trying to take that shortcut, when you are trying to like not draw out those certain parts, it starts to warp your image a bit. It makes it less believable, and it looks like you're cutting corners. So the more you learn about this stuff, the more you understand all this like interior work, the better your line work is going to be, the better your anatomy is going to be as well. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm going to turn the AC on. It's getting pretty hot. All right. Yeah, anyways, so I'm going to leave these alone. I have these pages. I'm going to be uploading these pages. You guys are also going to have access to this page showing you what are the most common mistakes people make when they're learning to draw. I also included these pages so you guys can continue to practice the figure using these basic shapes as your structure, as your groundwork, right? As the beams to a building, in a sense. You build on top of those beams. You start laying on the bricks, the details on top of those beams. These are your beams, basically, for the figure. So once you start drawing this, it becomes easier for you to start drawing the figure, even from imagination, because you just understand the proportions, you understand the figure in this context, and it's a good place to start. So once you start from there, you could build on top of it and do whatever it is that you'd like with it. So it's a very beneficial thing to learn all these different figures and shapes that create the figure, etc. Anyways, the entire point of why I was getting into it was just to say it's coming to an end with the sketchbook. I'm going to be coming back to it for things like coloring comics, drawing comics to ink. I still need to ink a lot of these pages, or a lot of these panels rather, and there are a few, as you guys can see, that need to be colored as well. So I'm going to be coming back for those streams. But as far as drawing basics go, it's going to start I'm going to start a fresh new sketchbook. But prior to doing that, I really want to make use of this one to a point where if I open it, I know there's no way I'm going to squeeze any drawing into this, because it is packed from cover to cover, page to page, corner to corner, full of drawings. So that is my goal, pretty much with all of my sketchbooks going forward, is to continuously fill up the pages as much as possible. And for those of you who want to dedicate, let's say, a sketchbook to only finished work, that's a great idea. You should absolutely do that. And that way it's going to ward off the fear of like not having a perfect image done in your book, in your sketchbook. You have an entire sketchbook dedicated just to that. So the other one you can use to make mistakes, draw messy. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't worry about what it looks like. It's just a place for you to explore and do all sorts of things. Turn into a Muay Thai figure stance. Just kind of went with it. Experimenting with different poses. You guys might have noticed that I was drawing same ones in previous tiers, previous streams, rather. So I'm just mixing it up. And as you can see, the more you draw it in this shape, it becomes a go-to. Whenever I start drawing the figure, I just go automatically to drawing it using these basic shapes, cylinder shapes, to define the body. A broom fighter. I don't know. I'm just playing around here. As I mentioned, anything goes in a sketchbook. You're going to collide figures into one another. By drawing through each other. I'm going to use a quick gesture to give the figure direction. People underestimate the value of stick figures. You know, as you guys saw, I did the quick gesture drawing. And if you were watching the previous stream, yesterday's stream, I was doing lots of demonstrations using the stick figure as the starting point. You know, again, it's the same idea as not wanting to jump into detail immediately, right? Like, let's say if I'm drawing this, and I start right away putting in the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and putting in all the detail and the hair and the muscles and stuff. And then by the time I get down to the feet, and I'm like, oh wait, it doesn't even fit into the panel. Damn, you know, and all that time effort is kind of wasted unless you could squeeze things around, you know, that's laborious. So instead, to avoid that, you do a quick gesture, making sure that it fits into the panel, right? It doesn't even necessarily have to be about a panel, a comic book panel. It's just say the page. You know, you start out over here, and then suddenly you realize that it's all kind of shifted instead of it being more centered than you want it to be. So just doing the stick figure, it's a minimal amount of work, minimal amount of lines to ensure the parameters are correct. Like, everything is in position of where you want it to be, and then you layer on by giving it more definition with using these cylinder shapes again to like make sure things are proportionate. You know, the stick figure stuff, it's stick figure obviously, whereas the cylinder shape really starts to give the figure more form, right? You're starting to see, okay, well, this leg and this leg are pretty much anatomically correct, proportionally correct. So I can move on to the next thing. And then from there, etc., etc. You know, I could keep building on and on from that. So if you're hesitant because the only thing you know how to draw is stick figures, well, good news. You have the advantage there. We can use that as a starting point, and it's a great way to do it. Same thing here. You know, I wanted to make sure that this figure really did fit into this section right here in the position that I want it to be. So by drawing that quick gesture, giving that curve, or putting that curve down, I was able to continue the body in that position, in that pattern, making sure it fits. Don't underestimate the power of the figure, or the stick figure. So that pretty much covers that part of the page. I'm going to leave this one alone. And I really like these pages, these panels, but as I mentioned, I'm not going to be precious about it. I'm still going to do a pretty good job as far as inking them and coloring them, so they're going to retain their value to me through that. So I will continue to fill up these pages. I might do this one as well. I don't know. The only reason why I'm hesitant is because I want to upload it for you guys to use, to practice. I think this is a really important one because it shows the general shape, like we were talking about stick figure, right? So when you are drawing the stick figure, you can take a shortcut, right? By, instead of just like sketching around a leg, you could do a quick gesture line of the legs. And you can see that this shape is just like the general direction of the legs. You could see how it's like kind of two bows connected. You know, this is one bow, and this is another bow. This is one bow, it's another bow. Kind of opposite facing bows, right? This bow is facing this way, and this bow is facing that way. Same thing here, this bow is facing this way, this one is facing that way. So two bows facing each other, two bows facing away from each other. And that's the basic shape of the leg. So yeah, I do find it to be a valuable page. I'm gonna be inking it, and I will upload it to Patreon along with other figure drawings, so you guys can download them. You could download them, have them next to you. You could draw them into your sketchbook to give yourself a guiding hand whenever you are drawing something else. Like if you're working on another figure from your imagination, you could always flip to it and be like, oh yeah, these are the shape. This is the general shape of the leg. The most basic shape of the leg. And the same idea with things like this. This is also available on Patreon. You guys can download these pages, and they're pretty big. I uploaded them in pretty big format, so you could download them and you could print them out to have next to you, to keep forever if you wanted to. That's the whole goal of it, is to provide you guys with as many resources as possible to inspire you to keep drawing, to get better, to challenge yourself, to improve and understand anatomy in a figure as much as possible. So this really provides it for you. You guys could always check out my previous streams that are uploaded in the Twitch channel in the collections tab. I have everything pretty much set up in playlists for drawing basics, the project stream, coloring comics, drawing comics, and you guys can look through them. A lot of the early streams, I go into detail talking about this page, explaining to you guys the proportions and understanding each section. But in order to save time and create more new material, I'm not going to jump into it as much, and I'll review it from time to time. Some of you might notice and say, wait a minute, you're drawing the head in this very oblong shape. And that's me just cutting to it, basically, because really I'm just drawing the circular part and the cup shape together at the same time. But I think it is very important for those of you who are just starting out to perfect the circle. And that's what this page was all about. It's to demonstrate how things ripple through the body. This page right here. How things ripple through the body in terms of proportion and anatomy once you draw the head incorrectly. If you draw too stretched downwards or just distorted, you know, there is no how would I explain it? There's no perfection to the shape itself. It's kind of like all over the place. There's some parts that are bumpy, some parts are lumpy. There isn't like an attempt to draw the head as a perfect circle, and it kind of ripples through the rest of the body as well, because again, you measure half of the head to measure the width of the arm, because that is the guide, basically. The head is the unit of measurement guide. Once you draw the head and then you draw the line down the middle of the head, you can say, okay, if the rule is that the width of the arm is half the head, well, measure the half on this side, and what you'll get is this really wide arm. Measure the half on this side, and you get a narrow one, and then everything else kind of just ripples through because of this distorted proportion on the head. So yeah, just a really important note. It is important to draw out the head as perfectly as possible to make sure you could count on it for guidance. Once again, I'm drawing through to make sure that the arms are proportionate. narrowing the width of the arms, because they are supposed to be half the size, half the size of the head, going vertically. Now, the only reason why I'm pressing hard is so that you guys can view it. I don't usually press that hard in this stage. I try to keep it as light as possible, but keeping it light as possible is going to make you guys strain to see any detail. So, I'm kind of avoiding that. I don't know why, but I just decided to draw a tail for this guy. Because why not? It's a sketchbook, and I could do whatever I want in it. The beauty of a sketchbook. Maybe it's slightly Dragon Ball Z inspired. I will admit, I was a fan. I don't know how much of a fan I am now, because it's been a very long time since I watched it, but I just liked the whole like leveling up aspect, right? Like they were training, and it's kind of like metaphor for any skill that you would learn. And then you take time to sit there and like hone the skill, draw as much as possible, and bring things to the next level for yourself. Or music, you know, you sit down and you play and you learn these songs, and then you sit down and you play and you learn new songs, and then you create new songs of your own, and so on and so forth, and just this continuous process. And it's kind of like what that show was, right? Like they were constantly challenging themselves to improve their skills and hone their powers and all that stuff. Like I tend to look at that stuff more metaphorically than literally, of like people being able to shoot beams out of their arms or whatever else. Just to me, I'd like to think of it as like abilities that people can actually have, like being incredibly good at playing music, incredibly good at writing, incredibly good at photography. You know, those are your beams shooting out of your arms or your eyes or whatever else. And I mentioned this before as well, like X-Men, for example. Like, I don't literally take it as somebody who is, let's say, Colossus, who has like titanium steel or whatever it was, skin. It's just like a metaphor for somebody who's very thick-skinned, right? Like when people say, "Oh, you got thick skin," like that's just like a literal kind of representation of that. A physical representation of that, rather. So it's kind of cool to think of it that way, and I'm almost positive that was the intention behind a lot of these characters that people created. So to me, I see the value in comics and in those terms. That's what makes them so interesting. I will also give this person reptile scales or dragon scales. Because why not? A dragon and a cheetah. I'm gonna start giving him like leopard prints all over his body. I'm in this kind of mood today. I'm just making up random stuff. Any Thundercats in here? Fans of the Thundercats. I'm a fan of those cartoons. There was something really fun about them. Even the slight cheesiness of like the lines or how they would sometimes talk to each other. Like I remember in Thundercats where Lion-O would be in some sort of scenario. He's like talking to the camera basically, or like he's talking to himself out loud, but he's kind of like narrating what he's gonna do. He's like, oh, this blockade is here and I'm gonna have to jump. But who is he talking to? There's nobody around. You know, so I always thought that was kind of funny. And it is something that you just kind of have to do, I guess, when you're creating these animations or whatnot. Or like Speed Racer, it was the same thing. You would just like narrate his own scenarios. But they're a trip. They're a trip down memory lane. Like I really like watching those. Or Johnny's Quest. I don't know if there's any of you guys who are fans of Johnny Quest. What I used to do when I was younger is I had this big chair and I would sit in this big chair that was in front of the TV, and I would if I would come home from school or whatever, I would sit in that big chair and turn on Adult Swim and sit and draw while having Adult Swim playing in the background. It was a lot of fun. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing. You know, if you're not streaming, you're learning how to draw. Create yourself this environment that puts you in a very inspiring mode of wanting to learn, wanting to level up. And as I mentioned, pick a comic book that you like. You know, pick something that you really enjoy and draw it from cover to cover. Just completely draw out the whole thing as a way to improve your drawing, as a way to improve your techniques. Now, especially with iPad Pros and the iPencil, which I'm a huge fan of. It really does allow me to do that, actually, to just sit on my couch however I'd like and be able to still draw some interesting stuff on there. While having something play in the background, music or a show or something like that. And that could be a routine, you know, that could be your daily way of ensuring you draw. Put on something you enjoy watching. Even if it's on repeat, you know, sometimes there are certain things that I like to watch, not because I want to watch it again, but because it creates a certain mood or atmosphere. You know, it is a piece of art. It is something that invokes certain emotions. So there are certain movies that I watched when I was younger multiple times because it did invoke a cool vibe. And yeah, I wasn't really like 100% invested in it. But now like all these streaming services, it's a whole different ball game. But I still do occasionally do that as well. Like, there's certain movies that are very captivating. Like, I know that I watched Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit's Tale specifically. I loved all the Hobbit series or parts. I thought they were much better than the original Lord of the Rings movies. I thought the adventure was great, the story was great, the dialogue was great, the cinematography was great, the acting was fun. Like, it was a real fun journey. I don't know why people hate on it, and it's probably because it was good. But yeah, I thought it was a really epic fun journey. If you guys haven't watched it, if you're reluctant to see it, or if somebody has tried to ruin it for you, I highly encourage you to watch it on your own. Check it out, form your own opinion on it. It's a blast. All those Hobbit Tales movies were awesome. And with that said, y'all, I will have to end the stream here for tonight, for Drawing Basics, that is. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and I will come back for the project stream where I'm going to continue working on character development. Fun little scene that I was doing 2 days ago. So yeah, stick around for that. If you guys enjoy the content, you want to see more of it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave some comments, leave any questions you got. And I will be happy to write you guys back. All right, y'all. I'll see you in a little bit.